And I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased to speak on the member for Watson's motion this morning about the Royal National Park, because following the redistribution before the last election, I got the most fortunate of redistributions. And most of the Royal National Park, most of it apart from maybe some of the real southern parts, of course, most of the Royal National Park now falls within the great electorate of Hughes. And that is something that I am very proud of. So I would concur with point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 of the motion moved by the member for Watson. But I'm a bit confused when it comes to motion number 7, which says federal Labor will consult with the traditional owners and local community on nominating the Royal National Park for the World Heritage listing. Now, why I'm confused is that this motion is moved by the member for Watson, who was the Federal Environment Minister of this country for 3 years under the Gillard-Rudd government. 3 years, and yet I am unable to find where he actually said boo about the Royal National Park. As the Federal Environment Minister for 3 years, why didn't he in the past take any step or say anything about having the Royal National Park an attempt to get it World Heritage listed? The coalition government, both the state coalition government and the federal coalition government, have already made moves on this. In fact, a press release from back in 2015, and I quote here the New South Wales State Environment Minister, Mr Stokes, and he said, "The Royal National Park is one of the most remarkable places in Australia. We are currently finalising our assessment of the potential World Heritage values of the park." He said, "Once finalised, we'll work closely with Minister Hunt, who was then the Coalition Federal Environment Minister's department, to ensure that any documents comply with the World Heritage Committee's operational guidelines and the broader World Heritage Convention." So it is the Coalition, the Liberal government of New South Wales and the Coalition government here in Canberra that have actually taken active steps, while the Member of Parliament that moved this amendment, a former Environment Minister for 3 years in this country, sat on his hands and did absolutely nothing. Now, there are a couple of issues with the listing, the attempted listing for the World Heritage. Firstly, I agree with the 4 criteria put forward by the subcommittee of the Sutherland Shire Environment Centre, which was why we should obtain World Heritage listing. 1, the Royal National Park is the first national park in Australia, being gazetted in 1879, and its creation marks the beginning of the conservation movement in this country. It is the only national park in the world within the boundaries of a major city. Its biodiversity is wide-ranging and unique. It contains a wilderness area, and a World Heritage listing would protect this unique place from aggressive urbanisation facing the area. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, some of the problems with the World Heritage listing, or some of the issues that need to be tackled, is firstly that although we love the Royal National Park, it's the most magnificent area, it's not actually pristine, because before it was actually listed as a Royal National Park, it was used for timber getting. And in fact, even after it was gazetted as a Royal National Park, we know in 1887 some 3,000 ornamental trees were planted, many of them exotic, when they beautified Audley Weir, around Audley Weir, which was done on more like in English gardens. We also know that in the park in the past there's been excavation of large volumes of gravel, ironstone, claystone for road and rail construction. And the logging of trees continued up until the 1920s. So I'm pleased to support the heritage listing. I'm pleased that the New South Wales government are working through all the issues to get this heritage listed. But I'm very concerned that we see political opportunism from the Labor Party on this issue, especially from the member for Watson, as Environment Minister for 3 years, that did nothing, did not say boo, and all of a sudden when he comes into opposition, he thinks this is a good idea, something that the coalition government has been working on. The other thing, Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the great things about the Royal National Park, if I could just conclude on, is the magnificent waterways of Port Hacking. Since my electoral boundaries moved, I've taken up to throwing my kayak in down there at Grays Point, at Swallow Rock, and kayaking all the way around to South West Arm. The water there is absolutely pristine. You can see the bottom for a couple of metres. Anyone that does that kayaking trip and to the wilderness and the natural wildlife understands that this place deserves World Heritage listing. And I'm pleased the Coalition is working towards that.
I thank the member.